Hi all! So today I'm talking about HeartStopper. Based on the comic written by Alice Oseman by the same name, HeartStopper focuses on Charlie Spring and Nick Nelson's relationship as it flourishes. Its themes focus on love, friendship, and mental health. But Season 1 has a particular focus on dealing with homophobia and self-discovery. I do need to say that I was reading the HeartStopper comics way before the show was even announced. And while I didn't exactly remember each detail, I had the outline of the story in my head as I first watched it. If you're interested in watching the series, it's available on Netflix. And if you're interested in reading the comics, they're free on Webtoon, which I'll link in the description. I do need to say that this review does include minor spoilers. I'll specifically only be talking about the series and comic content that the series is based on, but nothing that would ultimately ruin your experience if you haven't watched it yet. Let's start with how brilliant this is as an adaptation. Sure, there are a few changes as all adaptations have. I know some fans were particularly bothered by the replacement of Aled, but I wasn't too annoyed with it, especially because it got us Isaac. Some scenes are taken straight out of the comics. Maybe this was helped by the fact that Alice Oseman was a big part of the creative team, but I was able to recall comic panels for scenes effortlessly as I was watching. Even when some dialogue changed from the original comic, the same feeling and general aesthetic was kept. Speaking of aesthetics, let's talk about how beautiful the show is. There's always this bright atmosphere to the cinematography that really reflects the energy of the characters. Everything is so bright and colorful and just pleasant to look at. There's so much detail in every scene and little Easter eggs that make a rewatch completely worth it too. Like all of Isaac's books or Alice Oseman's appearances in the background. But it's always the little things that add so much to a background, even if we don't fully acknowledge it at first. They will always subconsciously affect us as an audience. An example would be the detail in the characters' rooms. I mean, take a look at Charlie's room, and now Tao's. You can clearly see two different people in each of these rooms. It isn't just Basic Teenager Room 1 and Basic Teenager Room 2. The decorations are modeled around the characters and their personalities. A choice I also really liked was the little 2D animated effects, which added on to the overall wholesome vibe the show had going on, as well as reflecting the particular style of Alice Oseman's art and writing. There's so much to talk about character-wise, I don't even know where to begin. Well, I guess I should start by talking about Charlie and Nick. I love Nick. I love his character. Nick could have easily been another overwhelming asshole who's homophobic to hide his gayness, and yet, he's not. Even before he comes out or has even accepted that he likes guys, he's still an inherently good person, who, despite being insecure about his sexuality, doesn't use that as an excuse to just be awful to people. In fact, the complete opposite. He actually stands up to people who undermine Charlie because of his sexuality, despite being scared of what it could mean for himself. Charlie is kind of the complete opposite. They make it very clear from the beginning that Charlie has been extremely bullied over his sexuality. This sets up the more careful and shy personality he has. Nick and Charlie's relationship is obviously the main drive for the story. In general, Season 1 focuses mostly on Nick's character development out of the two. I'm not saying Charlie doesn't experience any development, but Nick goes from being a straight-presenting rugby lad, surrounded by people he doesn't really like, to coming out to his mom and having a group of friends he fits in with wholeheartedly. Though, when it comes to Charlie's development, something that intrigues me is the change of his coming out and how it affected his relationship with Tao. See, in the comics, the reason Charlie is hesitant to tell Tao about his and Nick's relationship, besides the fact that he desperately wants him to like Nick, is the fact that Aled, who is replaced by Isaac in the show, tells Charlie that it was possible that Tao is the reason the other students discovered Charlie was gay, as other students overheard him talking about it. I'm guessing they changed this because if the series was following the comics exactly, this would have only happened in Season 2, and this would have been frustrating for the fans. I don't know if it's just me, but the entire way Tao's character is handled in relation to his friendship with Charlie is a bit messy. Don't get me wrong, I love it when characters have selfish motivations. I think it's realistic and a great method of exploration. But something about the way it was handled in the show just didn't sit right with me. On the other hand, have I mentioned that I adore Tao and Elle's relationship because I absolutely adore their relationship. I was really excited to see this relationship develop, and at some points even more than Nick and Charlie's, which was surprising to me as I relate more to their circumstances. The way they interact with each other is so cute. It's a really nice contrast to the awkwardness of Charlie and Nick's relationship as they develop their bond. Tao and Elle have established boundaries as friends, and are clearly very comfortable around each other. It's cool to see the two relationships develop side by side. One deals with creating comfort and boundaries, while the other explores the idea of changing boundaries and dynamics in a pre-existing relationship. Though, I do have to say, out of all the relationships, I was least invested in Tara and Darcy. Don't get me wrong, I really like their characters and their relationship, but most of the time they just felt like a foil to Elle and Nick's stories. Hopefully next season we get more of them. Overall, I really enjoyed it. I really found myself falling in love with this whole series again. Was it perfect? No, I don't think so, but I don't think it needed to be. There are a few lines that felt a bit too cheesy for me personally, but I don't know, I think in the end it didn't really matter. Let's be honest, this series just isn't a realistic portrayal of life for queer people. Most queer people don't get to have the high school romance experience, and this type of show is both a blessing and a curse because of that. I loved seeing the relationships blossom in the show, but after watching it I couldn't help but wish I had such an experience, or even had the option of having such an experience. And I've seen so many other queer people online express the same thoughts. At least we can live vicariously through these shows, right? Thank you so much for watching. I know this video came a little later than I said it would, but school kind of got in the way. Hopefully I have 1 or 2 other projects coming out this month, but that all depends on my workload because I am having to work through the holidays. Thank you so much for your support, and have a great day.
When water wine shine, he does turn to wine. Find honesty of the Lord, O God, lead us forward. Please enter praise for substantial days. 3 hoorays for our Lord Christ, for he who he does us entice.